And then once you feel motivation has been established to some extent, then please engage in the breath awareness practice for a little while. A sense of relaxing with the out breath and being awake enough, attentive enough to recognize when the mind has wandered and gently bring it back to the breath. Sensation of breath at the nostrils. Relaxing with the out breath. Okay. So you have to put up with some background noise in this guest house where I am. The people in the lobby speak regularly and loudly, and there's no soundproofing. Yeah. Okay, we were looking at chapter 8, verse 18, 19, 20. We'll just read those last few verses so we get an idea of what we're talking about. So you thoroughly confuse mind by the piling up of whatever objects you're attached to, misery a thousandfold will ensue. Hence, the wise should not be attached, because fear is born from attachment. With a firm mind, understand well that it is the nature of these things to be discarded. Although I may have much material wealth, be famous and well spoken of, whatever fame and renown I have amassed has no power to accompany me after death. So this is when it's put in words, it seems so obvious, but somehow most of us don't get it, or we don't remind ourselves of it regularly enough, do we? Accumulating all these things, what's going to happen to it? It's not going to go with us. Plus, if we're not careful, it will also cause a lot of misery after we've died to the people we leave behind if we have not made proper, wills and told people who's getting what. People may, fight over what we have, or at least be very disturbed if somebody gets something that they want. So in fact, even if we have a clear-cut, very, very clear-cut will, which we think is fair to all concerned, it doesn't mean everyone will think it is fair. There's often somebody or other will be upset, and therefore misery will come. So in that sense, the prayer of some of the Kadampa masters that that when I die, may I die like a dog, meaning may there be nobody there, may nobody be there to grieve or care about the fact that I've died, really. Let it not be any kind of distraction or disturbance for anybody. Let me die a peaceful death, far away from bickering, multitudes, whether they are relations or friends or enemies, doesn't matter. May I die alone. That one can understand that kind of sentiment. To already be lost to the world, so nobody cares, So therefore, there may be very, very few items that I have, and it won't matter if they haven't been dedicated to anyone in a will, because there's so few. Maybe, just a few clothes, begging bowl, maybe a text or two, who knows, something like that. That's the ideal of these great masters in the past. Now, we can't really approximate to that much, but at least we can, as the Dharma, as some of the teachings on mind training say, as we get older, and especially when we have a feeling we won't last much longer, then it's good to start it handing out and distributing everything that we own, just giving it away, giving away our belongings, giving away our wealth, and everything. Just as mentally we should have been, giving away our merit, our virtue, our merit, our body, everything to others, dedicating everything we have to others. wealth, possessions, merits, etc. So the worldly way is just one that is ensures some kind of suffering or dissatisfaction for oneself and for others when we die. The dharmic way is that's the best way. And of course, if one is sufficiently realized, then if we die in a very inspiring way, then even worldly people become inspired and stop, at least for a little while, being stupid and bickering and worrying and so forth, and develop some faith. Yeah, so that's the way to go. But being attached to fame and renown and wealth, pretty much right up to the moment when we die, so Shantideva is saying that's a recipe for disaster. And it makes sense in the words that I'm speaking, but to actually engage in that, not easy. Keep on accumulating. Just a habit. And the whole of our modern economy is based on accumulation, really. So how much do we really need to survive? How many things do we really need? Maybe how many food items do we need to survive reasonably? 50, 100 max. But we have thousands available, thousands. How many kinds of clothes do we need? Well, in Goa, it doesn't seem to be very much. You know, people don't seem to need many clothes here, but even here, I'm sure people accumulate many clothes. And how many houses, how many cars, how much money do we need? All of these things, you know, can be reassessed, I guess. But maybe we don't do that. I'll read again what Pema Chodron had written about his previous verses, 17 to 21 actually, which had started with oh, I'm rich, surrounded by attention. I have much material wealth as well as honor. Many people like me. Nurturing self-importance in this way, I shall be made terrified after death. Verse 17. So those verses, she's commenting on those and the ones that follow. She says that these show how we get distracted by good fortune. And one great Lama, Dingo Chinsa Rinpoche, taught that sometimes good circumstances are more difficult to work with than bad ones because they're so much fun. We think they're so much fun. So they're really like positive obstacles. At least when someone is angry with us, it might help us meditate on patience. When we get sick, our suffering can put us in touch with the pain of other people. But when things are going well, our mind accepts it, and like oil absorbing into skin, attachment to favorable circumstances blends smoothly and invisibly into our thoughts and feelings. Without realizing what's happening, we can become infatuated with our wealth, our achievements, our fame, and so forth. It's difficult to detach ourselves, extricate ourselves from these so-called positive obstacles. So if we do have everything we wish for, wealth, comfortable house, nice clothing, he advises us to view this as good fortune, this good fortune as illusory, like a beautiful dream, and not let it seduce us into complacency. Of course, a very realized yogi might go much further and regard all these things like poison. Run away as quick as possible from these kind of things, not want them at all in their life. Wealth, comfortable house, nice clothing, totally. Like Milarepa, totally eschew that, all that baggage, really. They would, great yogis do that. Of course, many teachers can't do that. They have to stick around with their neurotic students and keep on helping them. But of course, many of our teachers could very easily go and just meditate in solitude, and that would be perfect for them. It's not that they need us, we need them, so they stick around and have to put up with our nonsense and, keep on teaching us and reminding us, and dealing with all of our emotional entanglements, all of us foolish questions. Some of them foolish, not all of course. But yeah, the great yogis don't need any of this stuff. So Shantideva says, oh, foolish and afflicted mind. You crave for everything, but everything is never enough. As those in advertising well know, the more we get, the more we feel we need, right? The more we get, the more we feel we need. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it gets just built into the system. So laptops and smartphones and all these things, we actually do, in a sense, need them now, because if we don't have them, of course, it upsets other people, it upsets our routine, it can totally upset our jobs. We could become, jobless, of course, if we give up our smartphones, definitely jobless. So yeah, all these things, these kind of artificial, which at one point, just 30, 40 years ago, would have been considered artificial wants, have now become our needs, and they complicate our lives further. Of course, we say, oh, they make our life easier, but we should think about that. They're also complicating our lives. So all those people throughout history who have gained riches, fame, good reputations, where are they now? Where are they now? They've gone forever, whether it's Louis XIV of France, or whether it's Genghis Khan and his empire, or whether it's King Ashok or whoever it is, they've gone. What use in the end was all the baggage of their gold and their fame? Didn't help them at death, and it won't help us. The pharaohs, of Egypt, they had this thing. When they died, provisions were put in their tombs, which said to have helped them in the future life, Even I think some people might have been sacrificed to go with them, to help them, Jamadar ko maar ke dal diya, dafna diya, ताकि वो आगे जाके झाड़ू मारे उनके लिए स्वर्ग में या जो भी है. So, from Buddhist point of view, this would be regarded as ignorance. However exotic and wonderful the artwork on the tombs of the pharaohs, that idea of putting their possessions there in with them, from a Buddhist perspective, it would just create more attachment, So the consciousness dying, it would create, or just recently dead, it would just create attachment. And at some point, they would have to separate from those objects and people. So worldly delights could, of course, support our awakening if we're very skillful. When we are comfortable and at ease, we could devote more time to meditation and benefiting others. However, usually they lure us into being further, busy, restless, and craving. As Trungpa Rinpoche said, aren't we ridiculous? Aren't we ridiculous? Now, verse 21, where it gets very interesting now. He's having a discussion. He's kind of teasing us with these different logical arguments to help, to dislodge our heavily conditioned opinions, ideas, prejudices. So, why should I be pleased when people praise me? Because there are others who will scorn and criticize me. And why be despondent when I am blamed, since there will be other people who think well of me? So in the Bachelor, it says, if there's someone who despises me, then what pleasure can I have in being praised? You know, and if there's another person who is praising me, what displeasure can I have in being despised? You see what he's saying? Someone doesn't like me, despises me, you know. In one way, we can be upset because there's somebody else who doesn't like me, who despises me, you know. So what pleasure do I have in being praised when I know there are some people who don't like me? But since I know that some people do like me, then why be upset? What displeasure should I have in being despised? Because there are people who like me. But of course, even if 1,000 people like me, but one person doesn't, we often get fixated on the one person who doesn't like us and who maligns us, you know. Well, it takes in a crowd of admiring people for one person to say something, it can spoil the whole show, right? Being half British, I was watching the Netflix documentary on Harry and Meghan, right? Prince Harry and Meghan. So yesterday, I was looking at the new episodes that came out on Thursday. I was looking at one yesterday, and you know, Meghan and Harry and Meghan, very popular with the crowds, very popular. Most of them were praising them, but one person in the crowd apparently said to Prince Harry, then, you know, why are you being so unkind to your father, to Charles or something like that. So, you know, this one person is questioning him, criticizing him. Many people, most of the crowd is totally adoring, especially for his wife, Meghan, who's attractive, and people feel for her as a kind of underdog, perhaps, whatever. So, you know, but it's like all of us. We can be so upset somebody not being nice to us on a day when most people have been, you know, perfectly nice to us, but just one person not. Really, it affects us because of the self-grasping. Yeah. So this is about the 8 worldly concerns: praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and obscurity, gain and loss. So this craving, this attachment to wanting and not wanting, this keeps us spinning around in samsara. Just like the electricity is keeping this fan above me spinning around, spinning around. As long as the electricity is there, the fan will keep on spinning, spinning, spinning. So we are spinning due to craving for what we want, and not wanting what we want, or being upset at what we don't want. That's another form of craving, because we're attached to that not wanting. It's also a kind of craving. So she says it's really pretty insane to be so caught up with what people think about us, what they say to us, you know, but that's the way we are, enslaved by hopes and fears. And it's not just our personal neurosis, it's a universal dilemma. So many are the wants and tendencies of beings that even Buddha couldn't please everyone. Of such an evil man as me, no need to speak. So better to give up such worldly thoughts. Even the conqueror, if even the conqueror, the Buddha, was unable to please the various inclinations of different beings, then what need to mention a malicious person such as I? Therefore, I should give up the attention to associate with the worldly. Okay, in one translation, it says give up worldly thoughts, and here worldly, in general. Yeah, worldly people, worldly thoughts. This is so clear. So no need to comment on that, but it's difficult to engage in because, again, habitual patterns based on self-grasping ignorance. Always, that's the big troublemaker, the self-grasping ignorance and the self-centered behavior that engenders. And so if we have self-centered behavior, then everything is connected back, isn't it, to what central headquarters wants or doesn't want. We have an incredibly vulnerable, overarching kind of surveillance system as to what is pleasing, what is unpleasing, and what is neutral. And we want what is pleasing, want to push away what is not pleasing, and we couldn't care less really about what is neutral. We just ignore it. So therefore, we keep on perpetuating the three poisons of attachment, aversion, and ignorance all the time. Then how do we behave towards others? People scorn the poor who have no wealth, right? They also criticize the rich who have it. What pleasure can derive from keeping company with people such as these? So difficult to please. This is a brilliant verse. They scorn those who have no material gain. They say bad things about those who do. How can they who are by nature so hard to get along with ever derive any pleasure from me? Matlab, what's the point of me hanging around with such idiots? Basically, यही कह रहे हैं वो. इन सब बेवकूफों के साथ रहना बेकार है ना? जो भी कहूँगा, जो भी होगा, वो तो कभी खुश तो होंगे नहीं. And it's like that sometimes, isn't it? You feel that way. Always somebody has something to worry about, criticize. It's too hot or too cold. Or this is not right. That is not right. People are so touchy. You do a lot for them, but you kind of so easy to upset people. And of course, we look at our own lives. We're so easy to upset. Small things. Unless they have their way in everything, these children are bereft of happiness. And so give up friendship with the childish. Thus the Buddha has declared. Bachelor does it the other way around. It has been said by the Buddhas that one shouldn't befriend the childish because unless they get their own way, these children are never happy. And there's a note connected with that. What does it say? From some sutra, which is not given in Sanskrit, only the Tibetan title. Just as wild animals are never happy in a crowd, there is no satisfaction in involvement with the childish. True. When I was getting on the plane in Mumbai, just 2 days ago, I guess now, there were just some adults who were behaving like total idiots. I mean, they weren't drunk and disorderly at that time in the morning. It was 5 a.m., but they were just being so stupid and loud and laughing raucously and making stupid jokes and just behaving like idiots, right there in the plane before we took off, making such a noise. And you think, what is it? What's wrong with these people? Why can't they just on and on and on and, just one person, egging another person on, loud, raucous laughter, just stupid. Anyway, maybe one has set the bar too high, but there were 10 or 15 people behaving like this. And so what's the point? What's the point of what pleasure can derive from keeping company, with people such as these? Shun friendship. One should not befriend the childish. One should, of course, as a bodhisattva, try and help them, but sometimes best to just ignore and just pray for them because obviously they're not going to be affected by the kind of intervention that we could come up with. Maybe some very, very skillful high being could do something which really jerks them to some kind of attention. But that certainly wasn't my capacity at that time of the morning, day before yesterday. But no doubt a Buddha or Bodhisattva would have some, possibly have some means to wake these childish people up. Who knows? Maybe a ticking off, sometimes a ticking off can help people understand. But we wouldn't want to do that because we'd feel very self-conscious about doing it. And also it's like that whole thing, yeah, that let those without, what is it? Those without sin cast the first stone. Recognizing that we make mistakes too, it's often hard to remedy others' behavior, to tell other people off when we know that we ourselves also pretty ridiculous sometimes. But a good bodhisattva could do that, could pull it off. Yeah. So then some very, very beautiful verses, very, very beautiful verses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, some very lyrical. The Buddhist Sanskrit that this is written in must be very beautiful. These next few verses. And welcome to our friend from Australia, Jan. Hi there. Yeah. You come at a very auspicious moment in verse 25, chapter 8. When shall I come to dwell in forests amongst the deer, the birds, and the trees that say nothing unpleasant and are delightful to associate with? Wow, wonderful. Of course, not everyone can do this. Not everyone can do this. Anyway, let me read the next few verses, then I'll say something. When dwelling in caves, in empty shrines, and at the feet of trees, never look back. Cultivate detachment. Not sure what's being sold outside in the streets. The Pav Roti wala rings a bell, very nice little bell, but he comes early morning with the bread. When dwelling in caves, in empty shrines, at the feet of trees, never look back. Cultivate detachment. When shall I come to dwell in places not clung to as mine, which are by nature wide and open, and where I may behave as I wish without attachment? When shall I come to live without fear, having just a begging bowl and a few odd things, wearing clothes not wanted by anyone, not even having to hide this body? Wow, so beautiful. My father and I had a really good association with somebody called Baba Amte, who was a great social worker, worked with the leprosy afflicted people in central India, just south of Nagpur. Very great man, won many awards. It's very close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And his younger son worked in the forests of South Maharashtra, in an area, thick forest. And they set up an amazing medical center in the middle of the forest there in the Gadchiroli district, well known for its wild animals and its Naxalite activity. Police encounters with local tribal rebels, whatever, people fighting for their rights, whatever you call them, depending on your perspective. So once I'd gone there for an anniversary celebration and getting bored with the speeches that were being made, I just went for a solitary walk in the forest. It's thick forest there, thick forest. Some of the few untouched forests of India, really, I suppose, are down there. And on the one hand, it was incredibly soothing and amazing to be in a forest, yeah? Because within a few minutes of leaving the center compound, you're in thick forest. You don't see any plastic bag. You don't see any gutka wrapping. You don't see any cigarette packs. You're just there. And but on the other hand, there's that sense, wow, it's too isolated. There's nobody else there. There's no street, there's no shop, there's no sound of human activity at all. You can't even hear the traffic on the faraway, very little traffic on the faraway road that goes down to the river. This is close to a river. And it's just, could one live there? Me as a city-dwelling person, difficult, although one is so, in one way, relieved to be in a forest for a while, but living there overnight, that would take a lot of, what shall we say, preparation, training, commitment, and would need some kind of infrastructure to, help one do that. But forests, they are remarkable places. If some of you have never been to a thick, mixed Indian forest, pretty pristine, try and do so before you die. Then you'll understand what Shantideva is saying, because he was Indian, he wasn't Tibetan. He knew what a forest was. There weren't maybe not many forests in Tibet, very few, I would imagine. And nothing like the forests of central India, which Shantideva would be familiar with. He was from southern central region. So there, you just, in the forest I was in, there didn't seem to be any deer. There were birds, of course, and lots of trees. And it seemed there was some activity, what looked like some beaver activity. There was some activity like that, but I didn't see the actual beavers. So but yes, there's no beings there who are saying unpleasant things to you. Of course, if one stayed overnight, one would probably have some kind of interaction with insects, mosquitoes, and that wouldn't be easy, if one hadn't brought one's odomos or mosquito net, one would be complaining, all the way back to civilization. But it's interesting to go to a forest. And although it's a bit romanticized here in Shantideva's words, it's still, of course, one sees, as soon as you get into a forest, as soon as you leave a place where there are buildings and humans, and you come into a thick forest, a relatively thick forest, then there's totally different flavor, feeling. It's like coming out of a very busy street in the West, or even in Mumbai, and going in Mumbai at least, into St. Thomas's Cathedral in the fort area, or going into a beautiful, huge cathedral somewhere in Europe, off the street. Amazing. Somehow, tranquility, vastness. Of course, there aren't trees, but I mean, in a sense, a cathedral is like a vast stone kind of tree structure, sheltering. I'm just saying, there are places where you are taken out of your normal environment, busy environment, with a lot of humans milling around, and noise, traffic, and the marketplace with all of its buying and selling, and you are somewhere else. You're in another space, mental space, physical space. It's very powerful. Some people, of course, find a similar experience in the desert. If you don't have forest, there can be desert, can be equally enhancing and perspective changing. Once my brother paid for me to stay in a very interesting place in the middle of the Negev desert in southern Israel. It was amazing. Amazing to be surrounded by desert and to be in a tent. Basically a tent, a comfortable tent. Just silence and the desert all around. Amazing. So the desert fathers, so-called, these are people who meditated, spent their lives in the Egyptian desert in the early centuries, can't remember the exact centuries of the heyday of the Desert Fathers, but I would think anything from 3rd, 4th century onwards, possibly earlier, don't know. So, that is what Shantideva is saying we should engage with. Never look back, cultivate detachment. There's so many empty shrines in India. Wherever you go in India, you find empty buildings, empty shrines, empty tomb, structures from one of the many different, civilizations that have passed through. And one could shack up there, in places which you are not emotionally committed to as yours, where you haven't been paying property tax, you haven't been paying bills for that place, not mine. And even if you were to stay there a while, you would still not think it mine. It's kind of just somewhere you stay for a while. Of course, some places can be wide and open. A forest isn't wide and open necessarily. If you go to Mongolia, you can find that wide and open sense. So there's, deserts which are also wide and open. Mongolia was amazing when I went there once. So there's vast open spaces once you're out of the dreadfully congested capital city and the so-called mountain steppe scenery. Topography is amazing. Vast spaces. You feel like just sitting there and spacing out in the best way possible. Immediately feel relaxed, which it's hard to feel so much in the busy city. There are several busy cities now, I guess, in Mongolia, but the capital, Ulaanbaatar, very busy. I'm allowing you to speak now, all of you, just in case. So, anyone here been to Mongolia? Jan, did you go to Mongolia? Can't hear you.
I have.
Yes, I definitely went. When His Holiness was first giving the curricula in Mongolia.
Yeah, and you went into the rural areas on a trip?
Yes, we went out and stayed in the Gurs, and it was just the most amazing place. Nothing there, no trees, no nothing, just grassland.
Yeah.
But beautiful, like you say, and no noise, just amazing.
Yeah. So, when shall I come to live without fear? Having just a begging bowl and a few odd things. Wearing clothes not wanted by anyone, not even having to hide this body. Yeah, if you're in a warm place like Goa or central India, then certain times of year you don't really need to wear much. Of course, there's an amusing story regarding begging bowl, which is told by Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, which I've mentioned before. So there's this king, a very, very dharmic king, receiving teachings from his guru outside his palace walls, or at least not in the palace building. And, king's vizier comes up to him and says, Your Majesty, your palace is on fire. And the king says, don't disturb me. I'm listening to the Dharma. Yeah. And don't disturb me, go away. So the guy goes away. The guru is quite astonished. He says, Sire, what's going on? Your palace is on fire. Aren't you upset? Aren't you worried? King said, no. Yeah. You seem to be worried. Why are you worried? And the guru says, well, my begging bowl is in the palace. So one cannot get attached to even a begging bowl. It might be a nice begging bowl to, remember who gave it to you, where you bought it, and you get attached to it over 20, 30 years or less. So, but if you just have an old begging bowl or a hand-me-down, then maybe if your mind is right, even that is not an object of attachment. Because the king was not even attached to his palace. So even though people who saw him from the outside might think he's a king with so many possessions, he must have more attachment than his guru. Actually, the guru is much more attached to the king. King couldn't care less if his palace was burning to the ground, but the guru was worried about his begging bowl. कहना ये बात है. Yeah. Having departed to the cemeteries, verse 29, when shall I come to understand that this body of mine and the skeletons of others are equal in being subject to decay? Yeah. We're all equal there, all wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, all equal in that we will one day be skeletons or less. If we die in a nuclear war, then our bodies will be completely just whatever, vaporized, whatever happens. No skeleton even. I don't know if gold teeth stay intact after a nuclear blast, but depends how close we are to the bomb where it blasts. But I guess even gold teeth don't remain. And then, if it's an ordinary death, then because of its smell, not even the foxes will want to come close to this body of mine. But that is what will become of it. We smell dead animals, we smell dead fish, dead dogs. You know, have you ever been on a part of the road where there's a dead dog or some in the bushes often? You can't see it, but you can feel this, you can smell this awful smell. And I doubt if human bodies smell any better, because we probably eat much more disgusting food than dogs. So, or that many dogs, you know, a lot of artificial food. So I doubt that our decaying body smells that good, you know. Of course, that's why we want to burn it quickly in India, because we don't want it to start smelling. But if it's left 2 or 3 days, I'm wondering what it would smell like, you know, our own wonderful, beautiful body that we're covering with expensive perfumes that we buy at wherever, or which we see displayed in the duty-free zones of fancy airports, that will cover up the odor for a while on a living body, but even on a dead body, you'd need a lot of perfume to overcome the terrible smell of a dead body. So that's what this is going to become, all this that we're attached to. And the mind will be somewhere else, you know. So although this body arose as one thing, the bone and flesh with which it was created will break up and separate. So how much more so will our friends and others? At birth I was born alone, and at death too I shall die alone. As this pain can't be shared by others, what use are obstacle-making friends? Like the same way as travelers on a highway leave one place and reach another, likewise those traveling on the path of conditioned existence leave one birth and reach another. So until the time comes to be supported by 4 pallbearers, palkiwalas, while the world is standing around stricken with grief, until then I shall retire to the forest, befriending no one, begrudging no one. My body will dwell alone in solitude, and if I'm already counted as a dead person, when I die, there will be no mourners. And as there will be no one around to disturb me with their mourning, thus there will be no one to distract me from my recollection of the Buddha. Therefore, I shall dwell alone, happy and contented with few difficulties, in very joyful and beautiful forests, pacifying all distractions. Lovely. Maybe we stop there. Any discussion? I have to leave at 11:30, but we do have 14 minutes, or just under. So what do you think, folks? These are very clear verses, very straight, very clear, not needing much interpretation, but needing a lot of, what do we need to practice these verses? What is the ingredient we need, you think? What do we need? Huh? What's that?
Patience. Patience.
Yeah, but what motivates us to go to the forest? Patience? Partly. But what really motivates us to go to the forest? Well, according to Shantideva in these verses, these immediate verses.
Yeah. I mean, a sense of being at peace with oneself in a peaceful surrounding. I think
really.
peace.
He's saying he wants to get away from childish people.
Yeah.
And their distractions, which are distracting oneself. That's the immediate cause.
Yeah.
Of course. What's behind that? What's behind not joining in with the childish? What's behind seeing their childishness as disturbing or useless? What's behind it? What attitude? It's not a trick question. Very basic question. All of you know it. You're just pretending not to know it, to make me feel intelligent and wise. Haji, Maya, what's the answer? Mayaji?
Oh, well, disillusionment with the world as a goal.
Correct. Correct. 10 marks out of 10. Absolutely. Jan, you knew that.
Yeah, I know. I thought, oh, how silly once you said it.
Not silly. There's many ways of answering it, but that's a kind of basic one.
Yes.
With all the nonsense, one sees through this pathetic
Yeah.
charade we go through, on all these so many levels, behaving like idiots. I speak for myself. Totally idiotic. Although, by the way, Avatar, The Way of the Water, is a good movie, but you need 3 hours to watch it. I think it's a good movie, but of course, some people say how can you say it's a good movie, espousing a kind of ecological cause at the cost of millions of dollars, making it, and capitalists making money out of it? Of course, you can say that. It depends what temperament you are, more of a rationalist or a romantic. So I'm more of a romantic in that sense. So I like movies like Avatar, but I can see how some people would not want to watch it, get anywhere near it. And if you watch it, you have to be careful, because there is, according to Guardian newspaper website, there is a post-Avatar depression syndrome. Yeah, recognized now. Especially young people watch the movie and so forth. And because it's giving this amazing contrast with our present reality, a kind of ideal world where, of course, good wins out over evil also. And it's so stunningly beautiful, magical, and Neptunian, that when one comes back out of the cinema hall into our drab world, you can imagine, with all of its problems, then one gets depressed. Often, like one does anyway, after any peak experience or, any really good movie which moves us, we may feel depressed when we come out. But anyway, there is PADS, post-Avatar depression syndrome, according to, you can check it in the Guardian. I'm not making it up. Guardian.co.uk. One of the best websites, especially if you're interested in environmental issues and culture. Of course, it's leftist. So if you're a rabid right-winger, you won't enjoy it, but you could still enjoy looking at it and poking fun at it. So the Guardian website, very good. You see how Indian newspaper coverage of environment and so forth is pathetic compared to the Guardian website. Yeah. Because I guess we think it's the West created the problem of pollution, let them deal with it. We're just going to get ahead and, get ahead. Let the West deal with their garbage. Let them pay for it. Which is understandable, but a little bit short-sighted, I think. But anyway. Yeah, disillusionment. Disillusionment. Especially when we realize, there is goodness in people. We could achieve so much with our intelligence, so much. If it was allied with a good attitude, kindness, and with wisdom, we could do so much as human beings. We have even the understanding and technology to deal with our problems, especially the understanding. Of course, we need the willingness to change. That we're not doing because of habitual patterns and self-grasping. We feel very insecure to change our lifestyles. No government is prepared to take that risk to ask its citizen to change its lifestyle and not be addicted to growth and oil and your cars. You know, everyone wants to use their car to go to the market if it's more than a few hundred meters away. Who wants to walk in hot weather? Then you're just like the servants. In India, servants walk to the market. People with cars don't. Pathetic. You know? And if it's a kilometer away, then ooh. My father used to walk 10, 11 kilometers as a child to and from school in Shimla, in the hills. Of course, he was a child, but you know, we can do better. We're just lazy and addicted to our habits. Yeah.
It's also systemic, Kabir. Cities and places.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we can't walk anymore, even if I want to. There aren't footpaths and safe places. If you are a bicyclist, you can be run over. You know, we've created, you know, it was much better in your father's generation, even in my generation.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like a fossil telling my students.
Yeah, we're spoiled in horse cars. We have these beautiful pavements now being made in certain places, and it's easy to get to the shops. But it's amazing how many people will choke the shops with their cars, you know, when they could walk there. People from Panchil Park, if they want to go to Green Park or horse cars, they'll go in their car, whereas it's very walkable. No danger of getting run over, you know, if you have your eyes open. But people are lazy. People aren't willing to change their lifestyle. That's the point. Aren't willing to give up the car, for which, of course, they may have saved a lot of money to buy the car. So why should they not use it, you know? But yeah, so if we don't change, things don't change. Okay. Business as usual. I'm very fortunate where I am here in Goa, near Miramar Circle in Donapau, in central Goa, outskirts of Panjim. I can walk 6-7 minutes and come to a chai shop at 6:30 in the morning. Now, for me, that's like heaven. You know, I can't make chai in my room. It isn't that kind of hotel where you have an electric kettle in the room, but I can walk 7-8 minutes or less and get a cup of tea early morning. How about that? You know, certainly don't need even a bicycle, let alone a car. Unless, of course, one is in some way disabled. So anyway, Shantideva's message is also an ecological message for us today. If we want to survive, then actually we would do very well to go the way of Avatar and learn to live in the water or learn to live in forests. Of course, we'd need to do it very skillfully, or we'd kill all the animals, of course, scare them away. And so not to go to live in the forest to cut it down, but you know what I mean, to develop a different kind of lifestyle. Very important, based on renunciation, based on understanding nowadays, which Shantideva didn't need to think of. So if we didn't change, we're destroying our very basis of our livelihood, of our living. So we're ultra foolish not to change, because the alternative is death. Death for many. Famine, starvation, more sickness, illness, and violence due to more pressure on decreasing places which are livable. Yeah, so we're stupid because we know all this. There's plenty of books written about this, but we're not changing. So that's the whole point of the Dharma, is to change our mind, right? Transform our mind through analytically looking at the consequences of our current behavior and how we can change, and how, you know, that will be beneficial. Analytical meditation is about just that. But for that, we have no time. Couldn't be bothered. So we have only ourselves to blame, isn't it? So anyway, I'll be watching the World Cup final today, unless there's some disaster. And most people in Goa want Argentina to win. I certainly do, because France beat England, and I'm never going to forgive them for that. So I hope Argentina beat France, and the enemy is destroyed and debased. And, you know, we can go back. No, it should be a good match. There's some excellent players on both sides.
Yeah.
Watching it, I hope, in the house of a dear friend of my late father and mine. So that should be fun. But recognizing it's only a game, and there'll probably be a post-game depression of one sort or another. Even if Argentina win, then coming back to reality will be painful for a little while. Try to recover my strength tomorrow before getting back to Delhi day after tomorrow. So there'll be a session tomorrow evening as well as Tuesday evening. I'll try to keep that up from Goa tomorrow, and then I get back to Delhi in time for a Tuesday evening session. So we can continue there with these marvelous verses. Until then, if you live near a forest, please do go into that forest or into a park, woods. If you're in Delhi, you can go to Sanjayvan. Sanjayvan has some nice 800 acres, of which there is quite a lot of forest. It's amazing. Recently, I discovered it, not far from Qutub Minar. Yeah, amazing. And yeah, you can even get bamboo groves in Lodi Gardens, which remind you of the Buddha's time. There are many places one can go to, which are not too far away. In Australia, you can go into the bush, I guess, Jan. Can you go into the bush?
Yes, 5 seconds from me.
Wonderful.
I live in the bush.
You live in the bush. There you go. She lives in the bush. Right.
So I shall go straight out after this and do a meditative walk through the bush and think of you all.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So look, let's dedicate for everyone's happiness and well-being, and take Shantideva's words to heart and benefit from it, and use that to benefit others as much as we can in this suffering planet. And if we can, go to see Avatar, but don't be depressed after. Just one can see it, look at it, watch it with equanimity, just enjoying it as what it is, a magic picture show, totally illusory on a screen, but very beautifully done, I have to say. So yeah, and please pray for those who are sick and ill, and the refugees and all the cold people in Europe undergoing war on both sides, so-called aggressor and the so-called victim, and for everyone in the world and in the universe. Yeah, may all beings be well and happy. May all the authentic masters have long and healthy lives. May all their holy wishes be fulfilled. May we never be separated from the authentic teachings and teachers in this and future lives. Thank you very much. See some of you tomorrow. Have a good Sunday.